Hello, my name is Hayley, student number 181315543, and this is my video about what Birmingham children mean to me. In this video I will be discussing what my knowledge and understanding was of services available to Birmingham's children before starting this module and how this might have changed. Next I'll be discussing what my awareness was regarding Birmingham's diversity, poverty and deprivation before researching Birmingham, and what I understand about it now and the impacts these factors may have upon Birmingham's children. Thirdly, I will then be considering whether the services in Birmingham meet the needs of Birmingham's children and if there are any gaps in the services and what the potential impacts these may have on the children of Birmingham and the wider community. Finally, I will be assessing whether I believe it is easier or harder for children to access services now rather than before austerity. So, prior to starting this module, my knowledge of Birmingham was very limited, as I have never lived in Birmingham, neither has any of my family or friends. I do live on the outskirts of Birmingham, so my only personal interaction with the city would be to attend like concerts of the NEC or shopping at the Bullring or going to the German market, so I didn't really see much of Birmingham itself. From what I saw when travelling to Birmingham on these visits was sort of mixed depending on the area. So some areas boast large gated communities and other areas had lots of boarded up houses, closing businesses and looked extremely run down compared to other areas. From what I had read about Birmingham before starting this module and knowing it was the second city in the UK, I assumed there would be more government funding, meaning there would be a big range of services available and a lot of services available throughout the city. It wasn't until I really looked at Birmingham did I see that Birmingham did have a wide range of services for young children, youths and families, but I found that they are sporadically scattered across the city. Myself coming from a small town, this wouldn't really be an issue because you can sort of get from one side of Redditch to another in just 10 minutes. However, having this arrangement in Birmingham could be problematic for families needing these services, as they may not have the funds or the means to travel from one side of Birmingham to another. For example, Allenscroft, it heavily relies upon neighbouring wards for services. So if a family or a young person wanted to visit a children's centre or a youth club, they would have to travel 1, 2, maybe even 3 wards away just to access support networks, which sometimes just isn't feasible for these people, especially if they are vulnerable or living in poverty. Before starting this module, I was aware that Birmingham was highly populated due to it being the second city in the UK, and I was aware that it had a diverse society. I wasn't aware of how diverse it was. Learning that it was the second most diverse city in the UK was quite eye-opening, and also learning that it was home to the youngest population not only in the UK but Europe was very illuminating as to what the population in Birmingham is like. I was also shocked to learn that Birmingham had high levels of deprivation, coming in second out of all of the core cities in the UK. This is especially noticeable when comparing constituencies such as Ladywood to Sutton Coldfield. Looking at the statistics, Ladywood is one of the most diverse and highly populated constituencies. However, it is also one of the most deprived. Reading a report published in the Birmingham Post, Ladywood is the poorest constituency in the UK, with 81% of families on a low income, 36% living on working class credits, and almost half of adults living in the constituency are unemployed. When you compare this to Sutton Coldfield, which boasts gated communities and also has the lowest unemployment rates in Birmingham, it does make it apparent that there is a bit of a postcode lottery for the children of Birmingham. The impact of this upon the children being potential social divides and being unable to access services that they need. It is especially worrying that Birmingham as a whole is one of the most deprived cities because the population is so young, making it very apparent that many of the children in the city are currently experiencing some sort of poverty at some level. Birmingham, like I said before, does offer a wide range of children's services though. Most of these are voluntary run or charity based, such as Spurgeon's and St Paul's. As they are charity based, however, this does mean they only have limited resources. They can only help like a small amount of the community. I also found that many of the charity and voluntary based services available are run by religious organisations or held in like local churches. Although they do accept all people from all religions, I do see how some people who are of a different faith or belief would avoid these services out of fear of having other people's beliefs pushed upon them or their children, or just not feeling welcome. As previously stated, the Birmingham population is extremely diverse, so I do see gaps in the services available for people of different religions because of this. I did find there are quite a few children's centres in Birmingham, which are local authority run children's services, so these have nothing to do with religion, so anyone is sort of welcome. I did find there are quite a few of these children's centres being closed down now. The Birmingham Mail reported 29 children's centres are being reduced to just 18. Comparing this number to the size of the population shows just how little is left for the children of Birmingham. I am, however, quite hopeful for the children of Birmingham after reading the Birmingham's Children Trust business plan, who provide many of the services children's centres provide, such as family support and early help children's centres, but they also support care leavers, they provide youth offending services, emergency duty teams and adoption and fostering services. So even though many of the children's centres have now gone, the Birmingham's Children Trust will be available for the children of Birmingham. And as like I said before, as it's not a religious-based society, all walks of life should feel comfortable sort of using these services if they weren't comfortable using the churches or the religious-based services. After research in Birmingham, I do feel it is harder for children to gain access to services. This is down to local funding being cut and closures of places such as Sure Start centres, children's centres. There's also been massive cuts to the staff. So not only has austerity put a strain on what little resources are left, but now staff who have remained throughout the cuts now are expected to do double the work in half the time. So 85% of social work staff said they are unable to fulfil all the work needed for them to support all the children that are sort of under their duty of care. Because of these cuts to staff and resources, the eligibility criteria has also been raised. So basically this means that now these services are only able to support the super deprived rather than providing preventatory services, which have actually been shown to be far more effective than waiting until there's sort of no other choice but to step in, possibly take the children away. Theresa May was recently reported to have said, with the coming of Brexit, austerity is now coming to an end, because nothing like this has ever happened in the history, though, Brexit. It's really hard to say if that is going to be the case. So only sort of time will tell if austerity does end or it continues on the path that it is at the moment. So in closing, I did find Birmingham does offer a wide range of services which does suit the diversity of the city, but there's just simply not enough of these services throughout the city. There needs to be a lot more for such a big and young population.